Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here to bring you all the top stories from across the country and the world. I want to get to the latest on the ongoing migrant crisis. We have seen historic numbers of migrants entering the country illegally over at the border. Fox's Griff Jenkins is over in Eagle Pass, Texas, where he has been, and joins us live with the latest from
Everybody back on the side. Guys, let me say, get on that side. Get that way, that way, that way. You can record all you want. Second part of what you guys just saw with the cops and all that stuff there, that is the end result of the first. Now, many of you guys know we're dealing with this migrant crisis in the country. I typically tend to release one video per week, or that has been the, let's just say, that's been kind of the way this channel has gone for the past 2 or 3 months. This entire situation got out of hand on the topic of immigration. It is a topic that, quite frankly, many people don't want to discuss, but then again, though, it's becoming more and more and more apparent that it obviously does, in fact, need to be discussed. So the city of New York, the city of Chicago, many other left-leaning cities, very, very blue places, they are all, for the most part, sanctuary cities. I'm not entirely sure on New York City or Philadelphia just yet, but of course, these are 2 places that are, in fact, getting migrants. New York City the most, because obviously they ran on the idea of bringing people in. And as I talked about in the last video, the part of New York, that little borough called Staten Island, those people, of course, they have been protesting against this. They're out there physically putting their hands on the buses saying, send them back. We don't need them here. Obviously, Staten Island is a little bit more the, let's just say that it's the little bit more of the conservative variety of all the boroughs in New York, especially given the fact that Staten Island is a little bit more residential. And of course, a lot of these people were saying, you know what, man, we didn't vote for this. And of course, I talked about in the last video why it was that the guy who's been basically the most vocal voice here, a guy by the name of Veo, the same guy who threw all the pizzas out saying it's time for a New York pizza party after the whole ruling that came down on brick oven pizzas, of course, gas oven pizzas, and of course, all that type of nonsense, the crazy green crap that the city of New York and many left-wingers, the infected, always push. And I found it very, very odd that they're now saying that this was a problem in Texas. If you live in a border state like Texas or Arizona or New Mexico or even Southern California, chances are you probably deal with this all the time. But of course, Greg Abbott, he's been sending migrants to all these places, and God bless him for doing so. But here's the thing. Before you decide to point your finger at Greg Abbott for sending all these migrants to your cities, I want you guys to take a very, 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 very honest look at the administration that you voted for, because if he wanted to, Joe Biden could actually put a stop to this. If I didn't say it before, I want to go ahead and say it again. I chose to wait an additional day before I made this video because something has, of course, happened that kind of changes the complexity of this entire situation. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and look at the news reports.
Shelter here in the city confronted by another protest and counter-protest, this time outside the Manhattan College, where city officials plan to turn a former dorm into temporary emergency housing.
These protests happening as asylum seekers are now only permitted to stay in the temporary housing for 30 days. Fox 5's Fox 5's Stephanie Bertini has the details.
This woman and her little boy came to the United States seeking asylum. They're currently living in emergency housing set up by the city.
In Brooklyn.
She says when asked how long she can stay or where she will go next,
No sé.
I don't know, she said. She is one of many uncertain about the future living in New York City, a sanctuary city that hasn't turned any of the asylum seekers away. Today, today more evidence of the pushback from some local New Yorkers. Protesters in the streets over talks of former Manhattan College dorm located in the Bronx, specifically in Riverdale, might soon be turned into another emergency shelter for migrants. Fox 5 News reached out to officials to confirm no response yet.
I don't know what's going on, but I know this is wrong. They're bringing migrants in that haven't been vetted, and we have families all around here.
Anti-protesters speaking up too.
Migrants have done nothing to anybody. They deserve to have a place to live. Anywhere. Here is great. Anywhere is fine.
Homeless rights attorney with the Legal Aid Society, Stephanie Rudolph, weighs in.
New York City has had a right to shelter since the 70s due to litigation, and that litigation interpreted the state constitution to say that everybody should have a bed to sleep in every night, no matter what, and our city, state, and federal laws prohibit discrimination on the basis of one's immigration status.
City officials have said the resources are thin again and again, asking the feds and the state for more assistance.
Prior to this migrant crisis, where so many new people are coming to New York City, there were over 50,000 people in shelter. But because of how many people have passed through New York or come to New York, that number has more than doubled. And the city has created 2 parallel shelter systems.
Meantime, the mayor just added a policy for adult migrants living in emergency shelters. It's a 30-day maximum now in any given shelter. The mayor said in a statement, it's another step in our efforts to help asylum seekers take the next step in their journeys. Some migrant advocates don't like the new policy. Others say the burden on homeless.
The first thing that I want to say about this is that the New York Post, and the New York Post can be reliable, but then again, at the same time, they also release these pieces that are not reliable. I'm showing you guys an image that I obviously have cropped a big portion of it out, of course, because I have to do most of these things through my phone. And of course, if I'm on the go, then obviously the phone is going to be the thing that I'm going to use. There's a child there in that picture trying to get through wire. Now, I had to obviously cut some of that out because YouTube has got this thing about limiting your videos, limiting the ads on your videos if certain things are shown, but obviously I had to get this child cropped out. And of course, you saw the lady, the Hispanic lady who doesn't really speak any English, who is going to have to learn English at some point in time, which I personally think you should. If you come to this nation, you should eventually learn English. I think it should be required. I've also got other stances on this, which, by the way, come from a lifetime of being a little bit more lenient on immigration. Just know right now, at one point in time, I was a little bit more lenient on this issue. I've always been conservative on fiscal issues and topics of abortion in the military and all that good stuff there. But of course, on the topic of immigration, I was actually a lot more lenient. I'll explain that more towards the end of the video, especially when we get to the overall end result, because I got to remind you guys of something that occurred long before. But see, the problem in this case is actually this person here. Yes, the white girl with the glasses who's basically saying these people need a place to stay, bring them on over. How much do you want to bet that that girl has got no job, number one? And how much do you want to bet, number two, that her parents are suburban, she's living on suburban wages? More than likely, she's not paying any bills or anything. Or it's possible maybe she is, and she's just the good old-fashioned hippie type. Let them all come. Let them all stay. I don't care. But then again, though, at the same time, her tax dollars are probably not going to pay for this issue, especially seeing how it is that the city of New York is on the hook for over $1 billion to try to house these people. They're putting these people in hotels. And, of course, now you've got the Venezuelans who are about to get work visas from the Biden administration. Now, me personally, after seeing a couple of tweets here recently, my immediate feeling was that maybe you might not see work visas for these people until after 2025, because obviously this is the game of politics. You've got an administration that is in office right now playing politics with this issue, trying to get additional votes, basically guaranteeing people that, hey, look, you know, we're going to give you guys visas, all that type of stuff there. But then again, though, based upon the current Senate map for 2024, I don't think Democrats are ever going to have the Senate power to be able to get anything done on that. Of course, because you got to have 60 votes for legislation, not 51, as if to say, like so many other very, very bad actor personalities on this platform have told left-wingers that they need to have. Just get rid of the filibuster and we'll be able to take care of this issue. Doesn't work that way, son. It just does not. The only time you would do that is in the case of a desperate situation. And this right here obviously looks like a desperate situation. But once again, though, any type of funding could very, very well be filibustered and then be re-voted on, meaning that the issue could be kicked down the road for generations to come. I say the best thing you should do is just simply close the daggone border and send these people back.
Back in court. defending Mayor Eric Adams' attempt to limit the right to shelter law as the city struggles to find housing for the thousands of asylum seekers in its care. Meanwhile, Governor Hochul is deploying more National Guard members to the city to help manage the crisis. Eyewitness News reporter Janice Yu live in Midtown outside the Migrant Intake Center at the Roosevelt Hotel. Janice, good morning.
Good morning, Shirlene. Yeah, the city is back in court today, and it's all over the fact that Mayor Adams says the right to shelter law, this decades-long law, should not apply to migrants, given the current status. He wants to limit it because of the ongoing crisis. Meanwhile, advocates say this is not acceptable because this will only lead to more people sleeping on the streets. And as you mentioned, meanwhile, Governor Kathy Hochul announced that more National Guardsmen will be deployed, 150 additional people, and a total of 250 guardsmen will now be tasked with case management for Venezuelans who are eligible for temporary protected status. This is all they will be doing. The additional help is critical right now as the focus turns to helping eligible Venezuelans apply for TPS. This will allow them to quickly apply for and receive work permits, and ultimately the goal is for them to rely less on city resources. But with no end in sight and migrants arriving daily, Governor Kathy Hochul, as well as Mayor Adams, says the protected status should be extended to more than just Venezuelans.
If we had TPS for more than the Venezuelans, that would be a huge salvation for us, because we could get people the status they need, allow them to leave the shelters, go get a job, support their families, and, as I mentioned earlier, help me deal with the crisis of a shortage of workers.
And as I mentioned, migrants continue to arrive here in the city every single day. In fact, we know there is a bus on its way from Texas right now at the direction of Governor Abbott.
You've got migrants being sheltered in nursing homes now. You've got migrants being sheltered in hotels, which, by the way, a lot of these hotels are much, much nicer than the conditions that a lot of let's just say working class New Yorkers are dealing with, which, by the way, makes me honestly think to myself, why in the world is it that you guys keep voting for this type of stuff? And then I just kind of sit back and think to myself, you know, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you shouldn't. But then again, though, at the same time, as I always remind myself, you kind of voted for this. You kind of asked for this entire situation. You've now got to wait on a judge to finally step in and do something about this. And even if the judge steps in and does something about this, it could very, very well be overruled by another judge. You guys kind of seeing where I'm going with this here? One day, one ruling could come out, then all of a sudden they could reverse it. I mean, fact of the matter is this right here. The situation is so screwed up that nobody knows what the hell is going on. And if the courts are not in some form of unison on this, or in some type of, or if they're not at least uniting on the problem, then it makes you kind of think to yourself, look, this situation right here could get a lot worse. But then you get a white liberal judge who goes, no, we need these people. We need these people. Fact of the matter is that this entire situation is a morass because you people actually helped put this in place. Don't worry, we'll talk more and more about the politics about this entire situation towards the end, because as I've always got to do, I've got to remind you exactly what's going to end up occurring as a result of this and who this right here actually affects the most. But this right here is the situation. And, of course, eventually you're going to see cops. And, of course, I heard Tim Pool yesterday talking about how it was that the cops really and truly weren't your friends and that they were going to walk over to you with a smile and they were going to arrest you rather than the migrants themselves, which, by the way, may very, very well be true. But at the end of the day, you got to think about something really quick. What are the cops really? What are they doing? Cops are going to get blasted regardless. And look, I'm not some back to blue kind of guy. I went through that little phase before and then realized exactly how wrong it was. I was for that. My situation is that you take each situation as it is. When were the cops right? When were the cops wrong? That way there's always been the impression I've gotten. And of course, a white Karen can always get some officer to go over you and enforce the law on you. If quite frankly, you don't need it to be enforced on you, but yet needs to be enforced on the other party. So I don't think that going after the cops in this situation is actually the best thing to do. Maybe you guys might want to give it a little bit more time before you do that. But the thing that I take away from this the most is the fact that the city of New York, the taxpayers in the city of New York, and by the way, this is going to come from the lower classes of New York, they're on the hook for about $1 billion. $1 billion total to take care of this problem. And of course, they got to wait for a judge to come in and put his foot down, which of course the judge actually did in this case.
In for Chris Welch. Thanks so much for being here. We begin with new developments this morning in the city's migrant crisis. Just a short time ago, a judge ruled that a former school in Staten Island being used as a shelter can no longer house asylum seekers. Now, this means they have to vacate the shelter effective immediately. Morgan Mackay is live in the newsroom to break down the details for us. Morgan, this is a big deal and it's also unprecedented.
Good afternoon, Bianca. So we just got this ruling here, and it's big news since the ruling could affect other shelters in the city. We have reached out to City Hall to see if they will appeal and should be hearing back shortly on that. But to put this story in context, a group of Republican lawmakers on Staten Island sued the city to block a former school, the St. John's Villa Academy, from being used as a migrant shelter. The judge on Staten Island temporarily placed a restraining order on the city, blocking any migrants from being housed at this former school. However, the city immediately appealed and won that appeal that same day, allowing migrants to continue to be housed at that site while the court process continued. But today, the Staten Island judge ruled that the site must immediately be closed as a migrant shelter. A statement from Staten Island Borough President Vito Fasella says in part, quote, "Finally, some common sense. It is refreshing to know that there are some jurists in our system, like Judge Ozzie, who understands our concerns with having migrant shelters placed within residential areas." Now, this comes as the city has been scrambling to house thousands of migrants since the spring of 2022, with around 60,000 migrants currently in the city's care. Right now, the city has been asking the courts to re-examine the decades-old right to shelter mandate that requires the city to provide a bed to any man, woman, or child that needs it. Mayor Eric Adams has been arguing that the right to shelter does not apply to migrants. Adams made that first step in July when he limited the amount of time single adult migrants can stay in a shelter to 60 days, after which they will have to reapply for a bed. Over the weekend, the first of those 60-day notices came due. Then Adams tightened that rule, and now any migrants who arrived starting last Friday will only be allowed to stay in the shelter for 30 days. This could eventually expand to migrant families. Governor Kathy Hochul has always been adamant that the right to shelter only applies to New York City, not the rest of the state. But for the first time last Friday said that this mandate needs to be suspended.
The original premise behind the right to shelter was for homeless men on the streets, people who are experiencing AIDS. Then it was expanded to families. That is the right thing to do. But never was it envisioned that this would be an unlimited, universal right or obligation on the city to have to house literally the entire world.
And as the city is still struggling to find housing for migrants, a city spokesperson confirming for us today that they are looking to extend the city's contract with local hotels housing migrants for another 3 years.
I think that native New Yorkers, they're the ones who need the job here. But don't worry, we'll talk more about that because obviously we've got to discuss the politics of this one more time. That'll be towards the end of the video. Can't do it anymore. Can't house any more people. You've overloaded them too much. And of course, there's still the work visas and all that stuff there. But I told you guys that there was going to be a section of this video at the very end where we talked about the actual politics of the situation and what, of course, would more than likely occur as a result of this. Well, I need to go ahead and go to that section now. But before I do that, I'm going to play for you guys another clip, roughly 2 minutes long. It's actually from one of my previous videos. I went back and screen recorded the very end and got the rant. And this right here is the end result of this entire crisis, where they're like this old lady here.
Illegal, but only only talk to black people about voting. And that's what you're doing up in here today, pandering for votes to all of these students up in here. You're sitting on your hands, literally, and then you're going to be disrespectful and walk off the stage. But you won our vote. Sir, we've been voting for 60 years, and we haven't gotten a damn thing from you, or Joe Biden, or Kamala Harris. We haven't gotten anything. Sir, what? No, because I'm mad as hell, sir. 60 years we've been voting. What have we gotten other than being at the bottom class? And this clown here is going to sit up here and give us this Baptist preacher antic show, and we buy and see, but I hope you're not buying into that bullshit. I really hope you're not buying into it. Because that is disgusting and disrespectful. to come up here and charge you guys for coming in here to see this shit show. And then not only that, you guys being charged again off your tuition. Do you know that? I'm pretty sure you don't. So with that being said, I seriously hope that you guys don't go to the poll and vote for no more of these fuckers that sit in office ain't doing a damn thing for us. But these illegals getting $7,000 in DHS. Did you know that? They getting $7,000 a month. Food stamps, vouchers, e-bikes, scooters. They taking jobs away from us. Y'all sitting in here in college paying all this high-ass tuition and probably won't even be able to get a damn job when you graduate. Because guess what else? They haven't told y'all. The certifications attached to your degrees, you're going to need certifications to go with those degrees. And if you haven't checked into that before you started school, when you go for a job, they're going to tell you that shit when it's over. So
Mama is mad. Mama is pissed. Grandma. You can go ahead and call her grandma if you want to. She's upset, and she's not lying. When everything comes down, the migrants eventually are going to get a bunch of money. It's going to be money that's going to be given to them on the taxpayer's dime. It's going to be, how do I say this? It's just basically just throw money at the problem. Yeah, I got a friend of mine from New York, and if you guys, if you say this is false, please leave a comment in the comment section. I would love to get you guys' thoughts on this. He was telling me that in New York City, that if you get arrested or if you get a ticket or something like that, just for anything, if you show up to court, they give you free Mets tickets. Sounds kind of weird if you ask me. I think your reward for showing up to court should be really nothing. You just don't go to jail. Kind of a jacked up system we've got there in the city. I was also told by him that when Cuomo was in office, people in New York City didn't like him. They actually hated him because they continued to vote for him. It was very, very, very weird dichotomy. I mean, it's very strange. But here's the end result of this entire situation. What that woman was screaming, the rant. After a while, one section of the population gets completely disengaged because they realize that they are, in fact, being replaced. I talked about this in my little BRT video that I did a while back, of which, by the way, I did about, I think it was 2 or 3 videos total on that. And, of course, I also talked about the race war aspect, but I'll also be doing another project next year, seeing how it is, obviously, an election year with the skills I'm developing. Of course, with video essays, it'll obviously be in video essay form. The thing is this right here. You are seeing that some people are starting to see that they are being replaced. So what is the Democratic Party's solution to this? Well, they're obviously going to want to parachute Michelle Obama in at the Democratic National Convention, which I personally don't see that's going to happen because you got to go through a balloting process and you've actually got to pay the fees and you got to go, which, by the way, she can pay for if she wants to, thinking that it's going to shore up the black vote. But I hate to tell you this, it's not going to do that at all. The only thing the Republican nominee has got to do is just get anywhere between 14 to 18% of that voter block. And the way black men are going, especially with politics, and seeing how it is that she, that person, Michelle, did not poll very well, especially with the left, I don't think that plan is going to work. But let me also say one more thing, too, because this right here is where the entire situation, the whole meat of the entire situation is that what is the actual outcome? Well, I did a video a while back on Chicago, and of course, the people that were going to the town hall meetings who were discussing the immigration issue said, if the cops don't take care of this, we're going to take care of this. What he was trying to say was, at some point in time, we're going to get our gear, and we're going to physically throw these people out of town. That right there is what you're probably going to see in the major cities of the United States over the course of the next, let's say, year or so, maybe even beyond that. Even if you do get brand new leadership, guess what? This issue is going to keep going on. These people, by the way, Hispanics and black people, are not exactly what we call natural friends. They're actually natural enemies. Even Biden, after he got elected, said that these people needed to actually work together. That right there is never going to occur. It's just not going to happen. It's almost like you've brought in a brand new child, or you've had another child for you to take care of. Meanwhile, the other child feels jilted because you're not giving that child any type of attention. I've been saying for a very long time that when somebody comes out here and says you're on the Democrat plantation, they're not lying to you, even though some people claim there are better arguments. But at the same time, you got to also say, and I know I say at the same time a lot, but it's true. At the same time, you got to ask yourself the question, are you or are you not on a voting plantation that, quite frankly, is going out of their way to straight up replace? Before I get to my end result, I need to go ahead and say this right here. I was listening to Real American Politics a couple of days ago, and I advise you guys go check him out. Younger guy, I think he's from Wisconsin. a smaller YouTube channel, does live streams, I think, once a night. And, of course, the day I release this, you've got this Republican National Convention debate, which I think is meaningless because we all know the nominee is going to be. They go out of their way to now basically fill these cities up with Hispanics. And, of course, Real American Politics was asked 2 nights ago, will this right here mean more Republican votes in the city of New York? Will it mean more Republican votes in New York State? His response was yes. My response is yes, but that right there will not win the state. By the way, he did not say that the state would turn red. He did not say that at all. What'll probably happen is if this right here does, in fact, go down, you may see a couple more congressional seats flip, maybe 2 within the state itself, meaning upstate New York, and maybe 2 more in maybe the city itself, maybe the actual district itself, right around Staten Island, which I want to say has already got a Republican representative, but maybe some additional parts of Long Island. But the end result of this entire thing is going to be street fights. It's going to be jealousy. It's going to be people getting into fist fights with one another, and after a while, the cops are going to be overloaded. And I wonder if the messaging, instead of it being defund the police, is going to be refund the police and give us more overall police. It's going to be a very interesting way to try to contrast your previous message. Again, though, at the same time, it's also a possibility that these people have created a problem to then turn right back around and say, you know what, now we're going to close the border. Oh, we fixed it. That's not fixing the problem. That's called creating a nightmare and then coming in afterwards and trying to swoop in and save it. Of course, people aren't as stupid, especially nowadays. People are beginning to wake up. Yes, there's still a lot of very dumb people. We call them the infected. I talk about these people all the time, which, by the way, is exactly what's causing this, is the politics of the infected. Fact of the matter is this right here is the future of this situation. These people need to get back on the bus. They need to be sent back. I understand YouTube's not going to like this, but for the people of the city of New York and these areas, I think there might need to be at least a bit of some relief given. But then again, though, the evil side of me just says that you people voted for it, so you obviously get what it is that you pay for. With that right there being said, guys, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe, share the video. If you're new to the channel, please hit the notifications bell so that way you guys are notified when the videos come out. Please leave a comment in the comment section. I would love to get you guys' thoughts and social justice warriors. Piss off.